Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Ian Collins. He's the founder and CEO of Wysdom.ai. Ian, welcome to the show.
Kevin, great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing at Wysdom.ai is really, really innovative and cool. But maybe before we get into that stuff, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Sure. Sounds good. I grew up around the Toronto area in Canada.
Very cool.
Born and raised, early childhood. Actually lived in Saudi Arabia for a couple of years in, sort of end of elementary school before high school. Yeah, went back to high school here around the Toronto area.
Okay.
This is going back in the 80s, pretty long time ago, I hate to admit. And, grew up here, great city, great place, big family, north of the city, beautiful lake country and stuff like that. So I spent a lot of time up there. And it was
Muskoka,
just,
right?
all around
Is that where you're talking?
Yeah, Muskoka.
Yeah, okay.
That's it, yeah.
Very cool. So you went to university. What did you take and why?
Yeah, a couple of degrees. When you start out, you're coming out of high school, you really have no idea. So my dad and brother were both engineers, so I just took an engineering degree.
Okay.
And for no great reason other than it seemed like a solid foundation. And I went to a school up here called Ryerson University.
Sure.
And I got a civil engineering degree, and started out with sort of a good foundation, and got me a couple of good jobs fresh out of school. And and it just after a couple of years after graduating, I realized engineering really wasn't the long-term future probably for me. I mean, hardcore doing design and stuff. It was entertaining for a while, but I had ideas I was going to do a little more, broad, cover more ground. So I went back to school, got an MBA at a school up here called McMaster University, which is close around the Toronto area as well. And spent 2 years in there, got a business education to go with the engineering side, and always thought that was a good combination. Those two really set you up well for whatever you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Sure. So did you do that full time, or did you do that part time, or how did you do that?
Yeah. No, I did it full time.
Okay.
I had worked 2 years. I'd been out in the workforce, seeing the real world.
Sure.
And decided, I want to do this MBA. So I went back full time for 2 years, which was tough to give up the big paycheck.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Get used to a certain life. You finally graduate after 4 years of university of being a poor student and, scrimping and scraping.
Sure.
And you're out there making a pretty good salary. Back in those days, we were paid pretty well. I worked for a company up here called Rogers, one of the big telcos. Back in the early days. It used to be called Cantel. This is really early days of wireless. And did that for a couple of years and decided, long term, it's going to make sense to make this investment. Went back to school full time for 2 years, which was tough. Back to the student life, no money, pretty tight budget, but really had a great time. School is a great place. It's a wonderful environment.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So walk me through your career up until Wysdom.ai, because you've done a ton of stuff.
Yeah, have quite a few companies. So got out of MBA and got back into the telco industry.
Okay.
Worked for a Toronto-based, not a startup exactly. They were pretty well funded with a couple $100 million to build a technology that nobody would remember anymore. It was called CT2 Plus.
Okay.
It was this Japanese standard, these little tiny flip phones, and it was basically a Wi-Fi like standard where you have these little base stations all in these dense areas like shopping malls and stuff. And we were building out Toronto. The company owned the license for this technology. Yeah, so it's really interesting. I spent a year or so there out of school, and got back into the telco industry. After that, moved over to what now is TELUS. It used to be called ClearNet. Spent a year or so, and the technology we were building there was called IDEN. If you remember this old push to talk thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, remember that company? What was that? the big U.S. company that had that push to talk thing. It got bought by Sprint or somebody later.
I know what you're talking about, but the name escapes me. Yeah.
Me too. I can't remember the name, but it was big for a while, and it morphed into they had basic cellular as well, but they really pushed the contractor market and stuff. We built out a network here in Ontario and Quebec and Canada, end to end, and I was running the project manager on that.
Very cool.
And then got that bug to start a company.
Okay.
So this, I hate to admit how long ago this was. This is like 94, 95.
No, there's nothing wrong with that, man. I think it's great.
It's going back a while, yeah.
Yep.
And I had a buddy we were working with, and we decided we were going to start our first company. And a couple of guys, there was actually 4 of us in the beginning, and it turned out to be 2 after a couple of guys bailed, kind of long story.
Sure.
But we had this idea, we're gonna start our first company, not knowing anything at all.
Okay.
And this is before being an entrepreneur was cool.
Sure.
We really, didn't know what to do and how you were going to do it. And there wasn't a lot of venture capital or mentors around. So we started a consulting company.
Okay.
And we lucked into this particular market. There was a lot of the first generation of digital networks. We'd gone from no Gs, the early days it was analog networks.
Yep.
And then the digital networks were just emerging, 1G. We're going from 4G to 5G today.
Yep.
This is 1G in the 90s. And all around the world, people were building these networks. In Canada, for some reason back in those days, we were a couple of years ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
And we'd been working in the industry, and we knew all these great engineers, switch engineers, transmission engineers, RF engineers. And these guys are, super smart, and they just happen to be working these telcos with us. And everybody around the world, we realized, was looking for that kind of talent and skills.
Interesting.
So we hired all these guys and farmed them out around the world in Asia and Europe.
Wow.
To all these other telcos. And we grew a pretty big team, 50 or so, people we had working for us, and send them all over the world on these different projects.
Very cool.
And business was good. It was the mid 90s. The industry was booming. People would pay anything for talent because they had all made these promises to, governments or shareholders that they were going to have a network up overnight. And it's always, it never happens, of course.
Yeah.
So it really worked out. Yeah, really worked out well. And it allowed us to get into business, learn the basics, pay the bills, sock away a bit of cash. But then, of course, we had the bug to start a software business.
Okay.
This is back in the days of, Microsoft was big,
Sure.
a big player back then, one of the first big ones. Bill Gates is, one of those first real entrepreneurs that everybody heard of and knew and became a billionaire.
Yeah.
And we were making good money.
Okay.
In the consulting business, but we realized, this is just, day to day, month after month, we're producing a pretty good profit. But at the end of the day, the company didn't have any value. We were trying to understand, how did these company shares become valuable, beyond us just putting money in our pockets every month. And we, realized the company had to have this basic value, and that came from the software world.
Okay.
And we had been working with telcos all around the world. And we got to understand, the back office of these telcos, because that's where our team worked typically. And we started to see a lot of needs emerge.
Sure.
So we were in Asia, we were in Europe, and we were talking to all these, execs that were running these networks, and they were all asking for certain products.
Okay.
And things.
Interesting.
And the internet, it's just emerging. This is 97, 98. The internet is this really basic, primitive thing. The Netscape browser, that sort of famous turn had just happened, and everybody's amazed by how you can, browse, the world on this really nice graphic browser.
Yep.
And so that's all happening, and we decided we're going to start a software company based on what we've seen in the telco industry. So we kind of sell off our shares in the consulting business. Okay. Take our cash and invest it in a company, and start building software. We've been dabbling on the side, and we spent a year and a half, and a lot of our engineering talent, when they were back in the office, sitting on the bench, we'd put them to work building some of our products.
Sure.
And that company was called Wysdom as well. That's where Wysdom originally came from. So we had it was Wysdom.com.
Sure.
And the idea was taking .coms wireless. So we saw all these .com companies, and we were going to, extend them out into the wireless world, put them in people's pockets on,
Sure.
Early generation phones. It was real simple text messaging and stuff back in those days. So we started building up this product set that you could install in the back office of a telco, and then we would sign up .coms. Like we had car rental companies, airlines that wanted to send out notifications.
Sure.
Your rental car is ready, your flight is delayed. Early days of that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
And we started selling that stuff. So business went pretty well. It's 98, 99. We're signing up customers and things are going pretty well. And now it's our first attempt at trying to raise money.
Okay.
So we'd gone from a consulting business, and where it just produces good cash flow. It was pretty profitable, and we're socking away a lot of money. And crazy or not, we had reinvested most of that money into our software dreams.
Sure.
And now we got to this point. We said, okay, we've got to go out and raise money. And where does this come from? Again, these are the days before there was all these blogs and all this information, and Silicon Valley obviously was a tech center, but venture capital was still relatively unknown.
Sure.
In the backwaters,
well,
like
especially
Toronto,
in Eastern
really
Canada,
outside
right?
the valley. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So we really were outside of the that startup world.
Sure.
So we go out, start knocking the doors. We're talking all kinds of people, trying to find venture capitalists, or it was more angels back in those days. There weren't a lot of VCs in Toronto.
Sure.
We're shopping around for money, and we fly down to the valley now and then and tell our story. And it's 99, the .com bubble's getting going. It's pretty hot, but still nobody wants to talk to us. Everybody says wireless. That's boring. .com is where it is. If you had anything to do with .com, people would just throw money at you.
Sure.
But wireless didn't want anything to do with it. That's telco. That's boring. It's really dull. And then it's the summer of 99.
Okay.
And we've got two big clients. We've got 6, 8, 10 clients.
Okay.
But two of them are paying most of the bills.
Okay.
They're two big internet companies. I forget, it was like a company called Lycos back then. I think it might have been Lycos.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
And somebody else like that, right? Exactly. Yeah, these brands that are gone. And both projects for some reason get put on hold. They don't cancel, but they put them on hold.
Okay.
And we've got a staff of 50 people or so, and we've been kind of keeping it together. And all of a sudden things are tight.
Wow.
And it's the summer of 99, and we're like, damn it, what happened? So we're out shopping harder than ever, trying to raise money. We're slowly learning the ropes. What do you say? How do you do a pitch deck? Who do you talk to? Where do you find the investors? And things are getting a little grim now into the fall. And we're actually headed for bankruptcy. We can't pay the bills. Sometime in November, probably it's all going to unravel.
Okay.
And then back in those days, there was a big show called Comdex.
Yeah,
it was the biggest tech show of the year.
Sure.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
It's been gone for a long time.
Yep.
But Bill Gates was always the keynote.
Sure.
He would open the thing up on a Sunday night. And the Sunday night of 99, I forget the time, it's like early November of 1999, Bill Gates goes up, and his message basically is wireless is the next big thing.
Interesting.
And he says, the internet's big, but wireless, that's where the action is. Everybody's going to take it to their pocket. And he had coined a phrase. I forget what it was. And then the phone starts ringing. We actually had phones in those days in the office. People are phoning us now wanting to invest in our company.
Interesting.
So it turned overnight. We were weeks away from bankruptcy, and we closed our venture round in about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Got a bridge from the bank to keep in business and make payroll at the end of the month, and raised a pile of money.
Wow.
And then and then things were crazy. Then we couldn't, we were turning away the money. We raised about $7 million that fall, and 3 months later in March we raised another $50 million.
Wow.
And we had offers or orders on our fundraising tour of $200 million, and we had to turn away $150 million. They were just crazy times.
Sure.
But but there's clearly a lesson in there that it's not always about you and your business, right? The environment changes. It's the buzz. It's the what's going on around you, and influencers. These days, in those days, Bill Gates was the guy, right? He was the richest guy in the world.
Yeah.
He was the Microsoft guy. There weren't a lot of companies with people with that kind of profile, and people listened, of course. So all the investors really hung on his word. So it was Wisdom. So Wisdom grew, and now we're a couple of guys with $60 million in the bank.
Wow.
And started growing the business. hiring people like crazy. People are offering to buy us for, ridiculous amounts of money. And the board, of course, is like craziness. You can't sell the company, it's going to be worth billions. Yeah, it was pure insanity.
Okay.
It was really crazy time. We acquired a few companies, and it was so backwards back in those days that we would go and acquire a company. We bought this one really great little company out of Boston.
Okay.
And they had a good little, core product that would be a nice add-on to our portfolio or, kind of our suite.
Sure.
And we're haggling the deal with these guys. And, whatever the price is, it might have been 10 or 20 million bucks.
Sure.
And they said, we want all stock. And we said, no, we want to pay you all cash.
Okay.
And we would fight until we could come up. But, typically the seller wants cash and the buyer wants to pay stock. And this was the opposite.
Interesting.
They wanted all stock.
Wow.
They thought the stock was going to, continue to, appreciate so fast. They didn't want a penny of cash, and we didn't want to pay. We didn't want to pay a penny of stock because we thought the cash was basically free, and the stock was the most valuable thing. So we haggled, ended up at 50-50 or something. So it was just so crazy and backwards. But anyway, so the company grew. We grew to 300 or 400 people, growing like crazy. And then of course the crash comes along.
Sure.
And the customers all dry up. We got, at its peak, in the late 2000s, we're 30, probably 40 pretty good sized clients. Things are looking good. The revenue is rolling, and it starts to dry up. Right, the .coms all stop spending money because this is the .com crash. Nobody knows what's going on. If it's ever going to come back, the NASDAQ had dropped by half or something.
Sure.
And the company slowly, so then the structural challenges start to appear. When times are good, life is easy, right?
Sure.
You're growing, you're spending, everybody's in agreement on what needs to be done. When times are bad, it's just the opposite. Everybody's got a different idea.
Sure.
So the board all, has different ideas. The board, is fairly big by the time after raising 60 million bucks.
Sure.
We had brought on a fairly big board, investors all over the place. Not all professional investors. In those days, a lot of pension funds were investing in stuff.
Right.
So we had a pretty diverse and big board that all had different ideas. And you find your voice really starts to, be diluted, or, people don't listen to what you say, basically.
Sure.
And by 2001, I found, I couldn't drive the company. I couldn't basically have much influence anymore. It was a big company with, big board, a lot of people with their money in, which is perfectly reasonable. They've written massive checks.
Got you.
And they wanted to drive in a certain direction. And I decided it was time to move on. So I moved on in 2001.
Okay. But the company continued?
Yeah, the company went on for another 5 years. I mean, it was a lot of money.
Sure.
I guess,
hey,
it was a big bank account. Yeah. And luckily back in those days, we learned what a secondary was. So, my co-founder and I, we'd never heard of this thing called a secondary.
Okay. What is it for people that don't know?
Yeah. So a secondary is this wonderful thing where if somebody's going to invest $10 million into your company, typically the 10 million bucks goes into the bank account, and you issue shares out of the bank account, or out of the company to put shares in the pocket of your investor. The 10 million bucks goes into the company. A secondary is a little something on top of that. You'd say, okay, we're doing a $10 million investment, and a secondary of 5, and the 5 actually is you're purchasing shares of the existing shareholders. So the shareholders get to cash out along the way.
Right.
And we had done some, a really nice secondary when we raised the 50 million.
I can imagine.
So
sure.
A lot of the early shareholders were, very happy. So they did, really, really well, including, my co-founder and I.
Well, that's good. Man. That's great.
So it was great. It was at the peak, the timing was good, and so it worked out for many people, but late investors, not so much.
Well, the fact that you made it through the first .com crash, right? And made a ton of money, right? Like not a lot of people can say that, to be honest.
Yeah. So that's 2 companies in, and then I decided to take a year off. I'm
Don't blame you.
going to do nothing for a year,
Okay.
really kick back.
Did you actually do nothing for a year? Like actually?
Yep. A whole year. Yeah. I left in October and I didn't do anything until September. I mean, I did all kinds of things, but
Sure.
no work.
Not work. Yeah.
Just,
you traveled or whatever.
just
Vacation.
Lots of the things. Yeah.
Okay,
Lots
awesome.
of great things.
Hobbies, sure.
And then I had an idea cooking. So I started my next company in late 2002.
Okay.
With my current co-founder. Actually, we started 3 companies together, and we started this company called Mobile Diagnostics.
Okay.
And we had this idea that smartphones, had just emerged.
Sure.
So this is the early days of smartphones. There's no iPhones yet. It's the Windows phones. Windows were big.
I remember those.
Operating system called Symbian. Yeah. And they're really these primitive phones. But basically, the telcos, which we knew fairly well, all had this challenge where everybody had flip phones before that, and these smartphones just emerged. And people typically had called in over the decade before saying, "Hey, I dropped a call," or I don't understand my bill. Now all of a sudden they're calling into the telco saying, "Hey, I can't get my email, right? I can't browse the web. I can't do these smartphone things."
Sure.
And they they just couldn't adapt. They didn't really see it coming. So we built a really nice little tool set that let a customer service rep sit in front of their screen. If they had our software installed on their CRM or on their system, they could click a button, look over the air into the customer's phone that they were actually talking to. We'd suck up all the settings out of that customer's phone and present it to the CSR in, round trip was 5 to 10 seconds. So we could be talking now.
That's quick.
And I'm the CSR, and I'd say, "Hang on a sec, Kevin, I'm going to have a look at your phone."
Okay.
And I'd click the button, it'd pop up on my screen and say, "I see, Kevin, you got this kind of phone. Here's your settings." And back in those days, the settings could get screwed up pretty easily.
Sure. Yeah.
And we'd highlight. Yeah. There was this one setting called the APN, and it was like your, I forget. It was like a gateway address at your telco. Anyway, it went wrong all the time. It was had to be provisioned right, and it was always get screwed up. And in many cases, we'd highlight that to the CSR and say, "Oh, this setting is wrong." And in many cases, they could change it and push it back into your phone.
Wow.
So it was a good little product. We sold it to a bunch of telcos, and we were partnering with one of our partners was this company called Bitphone out of LA.
Okay.
And we were actually, I don't know if you ever went to the Mobile World Congress back in the early days. It used to be on the Mediterranean in France.
Wow, that doesn't sound terrible at all.
No, it was beautiful. It was this smoky little conference center in Cannes, where the film festival is.
Right.
Really spot, but it's right on the water in a beautiful little town. And we'd go every year. Nice. And the beauty of it is along the side, it's basically, sitting on the water, on the coast there.
Sure.
And on one side was this dock, and you could, rather than rent a booth, you would rent a yacht for the week.
Wow.
And you would do your business on the yacht. And it was just great. So we shared a yacht one year with this company called Bitphone. They were our partner, and we were both doing business, a steady stream. And people would come out of this smoky, cramped conference center. It was a pretty old building.
Sure.
And come out in some yacht with you, and it was just heaven. They didn't want to leave.
Sure.
So you'd have a steady stream of meetings. Everybody you wanted to meet was happy to come and see you because you had this beautiful place.
That's amazing.
It was so great. But anyway, so our partner that we were there with saw this steady stream. Every big telco, like in Europe and North America, was coming to see us and was really interested in this thing. And we got talking, and they said, we really should, buy you, basically. We should partner. You do the dance initially and say, "Oh, we should really be closer," and that kind of thing, which means we should buy you.
Sure.
And we haggled for 6 months or so until a deal appeared that the shareholders all liked, and we sold the company to them.
Nice.
In kind of late summer, early fall of that year, which is now like 2005 ish.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly, something like that.
Okay, sounds good.
And so we sold that company, and which then went on to be sold to HP a year or so later.
Interesting.
And so we rolled up and it became an HP product eventually, which was a whole other story. HP was in wireless and they were out, and that was a whole bunch of craziness. So then my co-founder and I went on to start another company.
Okay.
So now it's 2006, late 2006, and And digital music, digital photos are just taking off.
Sure.
Everybody's finally got a digital camera. Digital music, it's the the early days. There's really not a lot of streaming, so everybody's downloading a lot of music.
Sure.
It's the days of Napster.
Yeah,
People
I
are
remember
amassing
those.
these huge music collections, and even the legal collections. People are downloading music all over the place, and it's just getting going. But you're downloading onto your hard drive basically these collections of music or photos.
Sure.
And then your drive crashes, of course, and you lose it all.
Sure.
Your photos from years of weddings and vacations, they vanish in a second.
Yeah.
And all your music's gone, and trying to get it back is a pain. Plus all your regular stuff,
Sure.
your business documents and everything. So we had this thought that the whole world isn't backing up. Backing up is boring and dull. And there's, in those days, there's no drop boxes
Sure.
of the world where, the cloud's way too expensive. So we had this idea that the world needs this device. It's so simple. You take it out of the box, you plug it into your USB, port on your PC, and you walk away.
Okay.
You don't install anything. You don't set it up. It doesn't ask you any questions, like absolutely nothing. You plug it in, you go get a coffee, and you come back, and it gives you a nice big check mark, and it says everything you care about on that computer you plugged it into is all backed up and safe. And then you go stick this thing in the closet.
Okay.
And so we put an engineering team on it, and we called it Click Free.
Okay.
The idea was, there's no clicking, back
Makes
in those
sense.
days.
Yeah.
And
it was a huge deal. Yeah.
Yeah, we sold millions of those things.
Okay.
So we started selling them on TV because everybody kind of understood roughly, like, oh, I should back this thing up.
Yeah.
People didn't really know what backup was, but I should have a second copy of all this stuff because all these photos and music, are pretty interesting.
Yep.
And nobody did it, of course, because it was a pain.
Sure.
I didn't do it myself. But this thing was so easy that people would do it.
Okay.
And we sold millions. We sold them on TV shopping all around the world. We sold them in 50 countries.
Wow.
And the thing took off. It was growing like crazy. We had crazy big offers to buy the company, and things were really going well. Except we were in the hardware business.
Yeah.
And
okay,
hardware is a tough business.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of natural disasters that caused us grief.
Okay.
One was there was that tsunami in Japan. Remember, and there was a nuclear reactor, Fukushima, I think it was called.
Yeah.
And
okay.
the tsunami took the thing out, wiped it out. And there was this radiation zone, like 50 miles or something around this nuclear reactor. And little did everybody know, but within a couple of miles of that nuclear reactor was a factory that made half of all the world's hard drive motors. There's this tiny little motor that spins that disc, at a couple thousand RPMs, and half of all the motors were made at this factory, and it was, in the radiation zone and shut down. And overnight, you couldn't buy a hard drive because HP and Dell and all the big guys back in those days bought up all the inventory for the next year, and little guys like us were totally locked out of the market.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
We got distribution all around the world in 50 countries.
Wow.
People screaming at us, the shelves are empty, and we can't fulfill, right? We can't ship product because we can't buy. Even if you wanted to buy it 3 times the price, you couldn't even get your hands on it.
Wow.
So that's the hardware business, and it's just so tough. Something comes up, and the best product in the world, hardware will really come back and bite you, sometimes. So the company, bumped along, went okay, but we had brought in a really, a superstar CEO, a consumer electronics guru, had built and sold a big brand, and he was running the show. So I thought, good time to move on and do something new.
Okay.
And along comes this idea for Wysdom.ai. And all these years I had kept that Wysdom.com domain.
Nice.
And we actually started the company, and the company was called CrowdCare.
Okay.
And our product was called Wysdom. But then I had that domain all these years, and as we morphed more and more into this machine learning and AI world, we realized Wysdom was what we were selling.
Sure.
And I just happened to own this Wysdom.com domain. I kept it all the years. And, we obviously grabbed Wysdom.ai and repositioned the company as that. And then, Wysdom.ai was born.
Okay. So what exactly is Wysdom.ai, and why did you decide to start it up?
So Wysdom, the initial idea really came from, it was similar to this mobile diagnostics thing that we had done years earlier, where we had seen the ability to look over the air into the device and gather a lot of data. And this is now 2011, 12, 13, and natural language processing was just emerging.
Sure.
This early days of, using machine learning and NLP to understand a phrase, what was the customer's intent rather than the old keyword days. For a decade or more, we'd had keyword search tools that just took the literal words and said, okay, where do I find these words in something else? And, that should be a match for what this person's looking for. But NLP emerged, but we were on our phones, and you'd go to Google, and you could see Google had started to use NLP, back in those days. And you were on an iPhone or something, and you'd say, why is my battery life stink? And it would give you a 10 million results, but it wouldn't even know the phone that was in your hand. And we thought, that doesn't make any sense. We know we can gather all this data from this device. And
interesting, because you did it before, right?
Yeah, we had done it. And we thought this NLP tech is obviously, the future. It's going to get better and better at breaking down that sentence and constantly, using these machine learning models to improve and understand and interpret and predict what this customer is talking about. But if we inject, hundreds or thousands of data points that we know about this customer and combine those two, we're going to have a much better system. It's going to be, just a better mousetrap. So we started building that system back in 2012, and in the early days we called it crowd care because we were actually we thought we would go out and crowdsource a lot of this information. We would go out and gather a lot of knowledge from the masses generally and what they said and what they learned, and we would build this knowledge set, kind of library of data. So as that part of the idea wasn't crystal clear, and we had tested it. We had gone out and tested some public products, but what we settled on really was we went to our old friends at Rogers, and said, we built this new system. It uses this natural language processing tech, and we combine it with a lot of customer data to really understand them well, and we can understand them. We can satisfy or understand their need, and we'll probably satisfy them, and they won't end up in your contact center. And Roger said, that's a great idea. We, really love the thought of it. They were, innovative enough to take a chance on a young company. And they said, let's go for it. We're going to give you guys, Rogers has about 10 million subscribers. They said, we're going to give you about 500,000 subscribers in this one particular category, and we'll give this thing a run and see how it works.
Interesting.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, just for people that don't know, Rogers is a big cellular carrier in Canada. Just like an AT&T type thing. Be comparable. Or Verizon.
Yeah, they're the biggest.
Like
they're the biggest in Canada. Yeah, they sell cable TV, wireless, home phone, the usual full service package. Internet. All that stuff. So with 10 million or so subscribers, they said, here's 500,000. Let's give it a test. And, we believe this is kind of an interesting idea. And back in those days, it was mostly behind a search bar. The conversational stuff really hadn't emerged yet.
Right.
But what we did with Rogers is we said, these new machine learning models really need regular attention. And it's not something we're going to build and deploy and then leave alone. It's something we're going to, set up. We're going to try and understand as much as we can before we launch. But then the real work begins after we launch. Once we launch this, we're going to listen to the customers every day, understand where our system worked and where it didn't, and constantly manage the models and try and improve the system. And we said, let us do that for you. We will be the operators, basically, of the system. And Roger said, yeah, you guys do it. We don't have that talent in our organization. We don't have, engineers and experts, and we don't, really understand, know what it's going to take to accomplish that. So that really became core to our business model, as we weren't going to sell software, even, cloud-based software. We were going to sell SaaS. And this is the early days of SaaS. So it was our product with the service to manage it, to optimize it every single day. And that really became core. And it worked great. It really was super effective. Everybody was happy with the results. We, outperformed all of our expectations, and we started rolling out more brands. We started landing. And again, the theory in the early days was, if you stick to one industry, you're going to build up this sort of critical mass of knowledge in that particular industry. These machine learning models and utterances and intent, and the reusability is going to be really high.
Sure.
So we focused on the telco industry, and we landed, a half dozen or so other telcos, and the thesis proved to be true. It really was highly reusable in that industry, whether you're in Japan or Australia or, anywhere in North America or, Mexico, South America. People are asking the same things. It's like in the summer, fall, they say, when can I get a new iPhone?
Sure.
Yeah, they say, why is my bill so high? How does this work? And all those kinds of things. And then it naturally, starting about 3 years ago, it started to morph into a conversational, UI.
Okay.
Rather than coming through a search bar, pure question answer, it started to morph into the conversation as, Facebook emerged and all the chatbot world and all that buzz happened. It naturally just extended into, this conversational UI, but the same back-end product really, served us well. So, it's a long way to say what we, the product really is a full service, conversational AI. So we sell now to multiple industries, telcos, banks, insurance, government, transportation, some of the big ones. Gotcha. And we sell a full service. So we don't sell you a toolkit or a piece of software in the cloud. We sell it as a service. So from us, you buy conversational AI as a service.
Okay.
And, there really are two parts to this market. One is the do-it-yourself, toolkits that you can buy from literally hundreds and hundreds of vendors.
Sure.
Some of the best being, Google and Microsoft and Amazon and so on. But many large enterprise, which is our focus, these large enterprise clients are realizing it's not a core expertise like anything. I'm a great bank, I'm a great insurance company, or I'm a great telco, but I'm not great at this conversational AI world. And I want to buy a full service product. I want to buy the software. I want to buy, all the tech, and I want to buy it an optimization service where somebody's going to monitor my customer behavior, understand where it was able to satisfy the customers. If it didn't satisfy the customers, quickly diagnose why and optimize that system on my behalf to make sure it improves every day. And that is really what Wysdom.ai is now.
Interesting. No, I love how you covered basically from the early days to today, right? Because you basically have to.
It's kind of one. Yeah, it's all been one path, and there's this theme in all of it. What we really sell is simplicity. Over and over and over, we've sold this idea of making something easier is what sold. And sort of a theme through them all. And I've had a few companies on the side that we've started up and worked on side projects. But that's sort of been the mainstream of the bigger companies.
So how do you show? Because simplicity is really, really hard. Like the simpler it is so for hard. The user to use, the harder it is for the development team and the other people working on the product. Right?
Oh, we would have click free was the classic case where. Our target market we would identify would be like grandmothers.
Okay.
And my mom was kind of the target audience.
Sure.
And she's not, she's got a computer and an iPad and all that kind of stuff, but she doesn't want to do, any kind of maintenance on the system. So the idea was,
and she shouldn't have to.
Really, no, she should exactly. Yeah. You shouldn't have to, but you do. Unfortunately, it's kind of just the state of the world is nothing ever works. But But you shouldn't have to. So making that so easy, and we had a fairly big team, 150 people.
Oh, wow.
And we'd sit with the product team, every week working on, features and changes and modifications. Sure. And everybody wants to add features. It's like, if only we had this, it would do this wonderful thing. If we had that, it would do this wonderful thing. And the menus would get long. They'd get complicated. And somebody said, if only we added a step here, it would do this. But it would pull away from the core. And it's amazing, even, no matter how well you state the mission of the company, the mission is that grandma can take this thing out of the box and back up without any confusion or complication, or questions. Still people say, but only if we had this, it would be better. But only if we had that. People are trying to throw features in. And for years, we would battle and I would have to fight and say, nothing. It still has to plug in and do everything and give you a big check mark or a thumbs up at the end and say it's done and you're safe. You can bury some things if you want, but that core purpose, had to stay simple and clear. And it was amazing how hard that was.
I can imagine. You'd probably get
Yeah.
fought on that
Yeah.
almost daily.
It was, it was tiring sometimes.
Yeah.
But we always stuck to it, and the thing was, was really easy.
Interesting. So I'm curious though to know what features and how have you navigated adding features and adopting new trends in technology, because that in itself is very, very tricky. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AI is the, kind of the ultimate technology.
Sure.
But again, from our perspective now in Wysdom.ai, because we sell this full service product, it's fully managed. What we really sell now is results. So we go into a large enterprise client and say, you're probably thinking about a conversational AI solution. Everybody is. If you don't, your competition is, going to launch before you and so on. So everybody is shopping, and you look at the complicated world of AI. I'm going to go out and buy a product, a toolkit or a package of some form. I'm going to have to find the team internally. I'm going to have to train them, manage them, motivate them to stay on, give this thing attention, because they really need attention every day to really improve.
Sure.
And versus our sales pitch is, we're going to sell you results.
Okay.
You need this thing. You're going to need conversational AI. You're going to do web chat, or you're going to do Facebook chat, or Twitter, or text, or email, or whatever it is, or Alexa and Google Assistant. You're going to need that. But if you buy it from us, you're basically going to point us in the right direction. We're going to gather some information about your customer history and that kind of thing. And other than that, we're really going to take it off your hands. And we're going to sell you performance. There are three main things that we sell in our performance guarantees. We say, the NLU side, right. Our system will understand a certain percentage of everything your customers say. We're going to understand and match that to an intent and really know them well. And this is, 70, 80, 90% typically. And we guarantee that because we're the operators.
Got you.
And then the second big metric we sell them, again, we guarantee, is we will have a certain amount of containment. Customers will be inbound. In some cases, they might have talked to, somebody in a store or somebody in a contact center, but we will guarantee you a certain level of those will be satisfied within the virtual assistant and won't ever, need to talk to somebody.
Sure.
And there's a massive savings. And the third thing is customer satisfaction. Everybody wants these things, and we will guarantee you a certain level of customer satisfaction. And to get those things, basically you just have to engage and buy from us. So you don't have all this complication of buying a toolkit, deploying it, hiring, managing, building a big team, trying to motivate them, and then trying to integrate that thing and think about the roadmap in the future. From us, it's relatively easy. Yeah. We're going to sell you these results for a problem that you've got that, you need to solve.
Yeah, they know
we're going to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody does these days. Yeah. So we really, in a different way, are selling simplicity in, it's easy to buy from us. It costs more, of course,
sure.
because, it's a managed service, but it really is effective, and we'll guarantee the results.
Yeah, but they would have to build they would have to build a team internally or externally to actually build the product, which takes months or years, and then constantly maintain that and add features, plus have people on their team using it. So you're really not that much more expensive. You're probably way cheaper, right?
Oh yeah, if you do the cost benefit, apples to apples, it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah,
but compared to just buying the software, it's more expensive.
Yeah, I got you.
But if you look at the total cost of ownership, it's a lot lower if you outsource to us.
Sure. Well, and then it's your problem to handle all those things I just mentioned.
Absolutely, we do it all, and and we make sure it works, and and we actually set up. Or we will take on the penalties if we miss our targets. We get penalized financially.
I got you. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Yeah, that's it. That's been our business model. It really became the core of our business, and it's we're as this industry matures.
Sure.
People are realizing that the hard part isn't the tech and the AI anymore.
Yeah.
The hard part is adding value to your company. Making this stuff work. And as you talk to people who've been in the IT business for a while, CIOs of these bigger companies, they've all bought these massive software packages, right?
Yeah.
Millions and millions of dollars have been invested, and then they don't get the value.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to set them up, plug them in, make them work, and then nobody pays attention, right? They don't get used, they don't get touched,
Yeah.
and all this, the dream of all these wonderful things doesn't actually come true. And those people realize buying one of these products as a service really is effective, right? You know what you're going to get, where you don't take the risk of the internal teams losing interest and moving on to the next shiny object and so on. So as this industry matures, it really is working well for us.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting that you bring that up, because I don't want to say the company, but I ran into a guy, just me and a buddy were talking at the bar, and the guy next to us was with his wife, and they heard our conversation, and we were at the same conference, and we got talking, and he told me that his team bought this multi-million-dollar piece of software, I think, if I remember correctly, from another company. So it was used because it was so expensive. And they were on almost year 20, like almost 2 decades of migrating to this new piece of software. Like, how insane is that?
Yeah.
Like, the iPhone is what, 12 years old now? 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that?
Yeah.
Like, insane.
These big, massive implementations, right? They almost never deliver the value that they, were promised years before. It's just, they're just too big. They're unmanageable. So it really is, the environment is a good one with, new technology, AI especially. It really is a complex world. You want to make sure you've got the best, but most importantly, it's about adding value to the business. Right? It's not about the buzz of the AI. It's about what's it going to deliver for me, and how's it going to add value to to my business and my customers. And by taking that spin or presenting it that way, we're finding it's really working well.
No, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious though to get your thoughts on this, because AI has been around for a long time in some different version, and it's going to keep continuing to grow. But it seems like we have these hot buzzwords that come up every few years, and AI seems to be the big one. And I'm not saying it isn't relevant, but at the end of the day, in your experience, do companies and your customers really care what it's called or what vertical or what buzzword is tied to it? They just want to know or solve problems in their business, and they really don't care how you guys solve them. Do you know what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, for sure. It's it's kind of true and kind of not.
Okay.
From one hand, like you say, the AI part isn't critical to it. If you look at our business, we have a lot of machine learning models and deep learning in the background that's interpreting the customers, and we've got models that determine massive amounts of customers were satisfied or not satisfied, and clustering together the failures, and all these models have been built. And our clients, the enterprise, they don't really care that much. They like hearing about it. They say, "Oh yeah, tell me about it," and all that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, if it performs, they don't really care too much about what model you use, and if it's actually the most leading edge or bleeding edge or whatever. On the other hand, they all know that AI, machine learning, deep learning, is changing the world.
Sure.
And that their competitors are probably out there dabbling, and it is a pretty big leap forward.
Okay.
It's enabling things that we could never do before. You just couldn't do this stuff 5 years ago.
Sure.
And so it's enabling all these new functions or features or business processes that weren't possible. Say 5 years ago, if I'm a bank, for example, and I think about determining the risk of giving a loan.
Yep.
And in the past, you had some analytics system or a bunch of people stare at it and say, okay, Kevin, I know you filled out a form, and I know your income, and your price of your house, and your payments and that kind of thing. And I tried to understand if I should give you a loan or not.
Right.
Now everybody understands that the machine learning or deep learning models that do that analysis are just way more effective.
Yeah.
They really will determine where you should give credit and where you shouldn't, which is, the core of being a bank. And if you don't adopt that technology, you really will give all your customers, all the best, clients or, customers up to your competition.
Sure.
You'll be left giving a bunch of bad loans, and you'll probably go to business. So
Interesting.
people do realize AI is the foundation or is behind all these great leaps forward. You know,
Okay. Well, that's good then.
We couldn't create a conversational AI, with the technology 5 years ago, with basic logic bases. It couldn't be done. So they understand now that AI really is the magic in the background, but they don't need to know all the nitty-gritty. They love hearing about it.
Okay.
But they want to take advantage of these great benefits.
Yeah. And they want it yesterday, right? They call you today, but they're like, well, can you implement it yesterday? And you're like, well,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And not even that, we sell to the enterprise market, and it's not a fast sales cycle.
No.
You're talking to them for 6 months.
Sure.
6 months, you're talking, and then they want it yesterday.
Yeah, I got you. So sounds about right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's just how it is.
So I'm curious though, do you have any personal thoughts or predictions of where some of this stuff might go in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. All the analysts, I wouldn't argue too much with the basic analyst opinions of our particular space, conversational AI. So everybody says, say 80% of customer interaction with brands are going to be handled by an AI.
Okay.
And at first you think 80%. So if I talk, if I'm going to the mall and I want to, I go to the Apple store, Apple isn't their tech company, but if I'm going to buy some shoes and I say, what are the right shoes for me? Or anything where you might have talked to a person in the past, 80% of the time an AI is going to handle that. And you think, that seems like a lot, and it's a short time. People say 2 to 3 years, not even 5.
Sure.
And but it is moving so fast. It's really true that the technology today is pretty amazing. We can really understand so much of what that customer actually means. When they say certain things, and we have a conversation with that customer, what did they really need? What was their challenge or interest? And it's amazing how fast these systems learn.
Sure.
And they're getting more and more natural. We're mostly text-based today, but the voice stuff is coming so fast.
Yeah,
it's just behind. 2 years from now, we really are going to have it's really moving fast. That's the most amazing thing in this industry. And we're close to it, of course. And a lot of our clients are getting out there in the, relatively early days, and we're satisfying a massive amount of clients, but they really are going to hit 80%. Everybody we're working with right now within the next 2 to 3 years. You can see it clearly. So it really is coming. It's going to be a massive shift in how we all interact with these brands, and we'll all be used to it, I guess, and not expect anything different.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I also assume though that if I have my own, say, health data or personal data with stuff like past shoes I've bought or sizes, or I have an arch or no arch, or like specific things to me, that if I could literally just say, okay, you're in this shoe store, you're buying shoes, do you want to allow them this pieces of your personal data, because we could basically give you, 20 pairs of shoes that this store sells right now and guide you to them that will fit you perfectly. A lot of people, I think, will do that, right? And maybe it's anonymous, maybe it's not anonymous, but something like that, to me, I think people get scared by it, but I also think at some point, a lot of people will be like, you know what? I like this convenience, and I'm willing to sacrifice a bit of personal data to get this convenience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And today, I think we're going to see a shift. Today, Facebook and Google, all these guys are vacuuming up so much data, and all the brokers in the background are vacuuming up so much data about us, and it's unknown to all of us, right? We're all fear it because it's really it's out there somewhere. People know so much about us. Even theoretically, they're looking at the conversations, right? Some of those latest leaks and things like that.
Sure.
So it's scary stuff. And I don't know, the transition would be tough, and it may be impossible, but one day there may be some kind of an open data broker that really is crystal clear, that says, I really have all this information about you, Kevin, right? We know everything from your shoe size and your arch type and your, home address and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, hopefully you will have the control and say, I agree, I'm going to share the relevant data with the shoe store. And if I'm going to get a loan or a mortgage, I agree, I'm going to share the relevant data with this company. And like say, I may give up some of that information for convenience in other ways, like, advertising theoretically, or
Sure.
free services of other kinds. But I think we're going to see more control end up in the hands of the consumers in controlling our data. Right now, it's Wild West.
Sure.
And 20 years from now, people are going to say, whoa, like, how did anybody ever put up with that? The transition from here to there is going to be a tough one, but I think it's natural that we will end up taking control back. We still will offer it, but we'll offer it, with our own consent. We'll actually know when we've given up the rights to all this personal data.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But Ian, we're coming to the end of the show, so let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself and Wysdom.ai.
Yeah, you can, Wysdom.ai, of course, Wysdom.ai is our website. Always reach me on LinkedIn. Always happy to chat with other entrepreneurs and people interested in the space. So that's where you can reach us.
Perfect, Ian. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time in your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot, Kevin. It was great being here.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.